On a brutally cold winter evening, a merciless biting wind screamed through the towering pines surrounding a small, isolated cabin nestled deep in the heart of the Rockies. Ethan, a solitary forest ranger on his week-long retreat, was halfway through a steaming, much-needed cup of coffee and utterly lost in the final chapters of his favorite novel. The fierce crackling of the fireplace bravely battled the cold, filling the room with precious warmth, while the faint, comforting scent of pinewood smoke layered the cozy ambiance. The weather forecast had ominously promised an overnight snowstorm, and the violent gusts rattling the window panes suggested the prediction was terrifyingly accurate. As Ethan stretched, trying to work out the knots of tension in his back, a sudden, startling noise ripped him from his peaceful reverie. It was a faint, almost heartbreakingly plaintive sound, like a cry carried cruelly through the frosty air. Frowning deeply, he reluctantly set his book down and cautiously approached the window. Outside, the menacing shadows of the forest melted into the inky blackness of the approaching night. But he noticed a flicker of movement near the porch steps. Squinting intently, Ethan caught a fleeting glimpse of an animal, its fur momentarily illuminated by the weak, flickering porch light. Curiosity warring with a prickle of apprehension, he snatched up his thick, insulated jacket and gloves before bracing himself and stepping out into the freezing night. The wind felt like tiny knives stinging his face as he opened the door, and he was met with an absolutely astonishing sight. A bobcat, crouched low but visibly trembling uncontrollably, stared at him with unwavering, intense amber eyes. Its fur, a beautiful mosaic of tawny gold and gray with distinctive dark markings, was matted and plastered in places, and the creature seemed to have been wandering lost for a very long time. For a suspended moment, neither moved. The raw tension between man and wild animal almost suffocatingly palpable. Ethan had encountered bobcats during his ranger duties before, but never this close, and certainly not one behaving so utterly oddly. Its gaze was intense, pleading almost, filled with a desperate vulnerability. As it shifted slightly, he noticed the creature's noticeably swollen midsection. Was it injured or... He hesitated, a new thought forming. Could it be pregnant? The bobcat let out a low, rough, gravelly sound, its paw tentatively reaching forward, as if making a silent, desperate plea for entry. Ethan's survival instincts screamed at him to be cautious, to back away immediately. But another part of him, the part that deeply respected the wild and its ancient, unspoken rules, urged him, compelled him to act with unexpected kindness. Against his better judgment, ignoring the logical warnings in his head, he opened the door wider and stepped back. To his utter astonishment, the bobcat didn't hesitate for a second. It padded inside, its movements weary but incredibly deliberate, and immediately made a beeline for the comforting warmth of the fire. The icy wind, a malevolent force, followed briefly before Ethan quickly closed the door, sealing out the storm's fury. He stood there, rooted to the spot, watching in stunned silence as the animal curled up tightly on the rug. A stark, beautiful contrast to the room's rustic comfort. The firelight danced across its fur, highlighting the undeniable tension in its taut muscles as it lay perfectly still, save for the faint, rhythmic rise and fall of its chest. Ethan's thoughts raced wildly. What could possibly compel a wild creature, a predator, to approach a human in such a profoundly vulnerable state? Was it just hunger, sheer desperation, or perhaps an instinct deeper, more primal than anything he could comprehend? Deciding, heartbreakingly, that the creature must be starving, he rummaged frantically through his kitchen for anything remotely suitable. He found a piece of cooked chicken he'd saved from dinner and cautiously, carefully, set it down near the bobcat. The animal lifted its head slowly, sniffing the air with mild interest. But to his complete surprise, it ignored the offering entirely. Instead, it focused solely on the fire, as though seeking only warmth, pure warmth. Ethan sat on the far end of the couch, keeping a respectful, cautious distance, while observing his utterly unexpected, uninvited guest. The bobcat occasionally glanced his way, its amber eyes glinting mysteriously in the firelight. It seemed oddly, unnervingly calm for a wild animal, though Ethan could still see the underlying tension in its every movement. A creature caught precariously between instinctual fear and a desperate, fragile trust. As the long hours passed, the storm outside intensified its relentless assault. Snow began piling up relentlessly against the windows, muffling the world in a suffocating, icy embrace. Ethan diligently stoked the fire, ensuring the room stayed blessedly warm. The bobcat remained curled near the hearth, its breathing steady but shallow. It seemed to intuitively sense it was safe here, and Ethan found himself strangely, inexplicably comforted by its quiet presence. By morning, the cabin was completely buried under a thick, pristine blanket of snow. Ethan woke to a strange, low, rhythmic rumbling sound. It took him a moment, heavy with sleep, to realize, with a jolt, that it was the bobcat purring. The animal was lying on its side now, and as he cautiously approached, he noticed with certainty that it looked even rounder than the night before. His suspicion from earlier, the one he had barely dared to entertain, resurfaced with overwhelming clarity. The bobcat was, without a doubt, pregnant, unsure, completely adrift of what to do next. Ethan decided to check in with his ranger contacts via his emergency radio. However, the violent storm had cruelly knocked out the signal. He was utterly on his own, left to rely solely on his instincts and whatever fragmented knowledge he possessed. If the bobcat went into labor here, now, he knew he would need to somehow make sure it was comfortable and safe throughout the ordeal. Throughout the long, tense day, Ethan kept himself busy, working to distract from the anxiety swirling inside him. He cleared the heavy snow from the cabin's entrance and diligently ensured there was enough firewood piled high to last through the remainder of the storm. Meanwhile, the bobcat had quietly claimed a corner of the living room, where it seemed to be resting, patiently preparing for what was inevitably to come. Ethan gently laid out an old blanket for her, and though she regarded him wearily, with those watchful amber eyes, she eventually, gratefully, settled onto it. That evening, as the storm finally began to grudgingly ease its grip, the cabin was filled with a brand new, miraculous sound. Tiny, high-pitched, insistent cries. Ethan watched, awestruck, as the bobcat gave birth to 3 small, precious cubs. Their fur was damp, their tiny eyes tightly shut, and their fragile, mewing voices filled the otherwise silent room with a surprising vitality. The new mother worked diligently, cleaning each tiny cub with tender care and nudging them close to her for vital warmth. Ethan felt an unexpected, powerful swell of emotion wash over him as he observed the scene unfold. Here was a wild creature, inherently vulnerable yet undeniably fierce, trusting him enough somehow to share such an incredibly intimate, sacred moment. He wisely kept his distance, not wanting to disturb the new, fragile family. But he ensured the fire stayed brightly lit, and the room remained warmly cocooned against the lingering cold. Over the next few days, Ethan slowly, cautiously adjusted to his unusual, delightful housemates. The mother bobcat, whom Ethan had started quietly calling Willow, remained cautious, her wild instincts ever present. But she eventually allowed him to bring her food and water. She refused most of it at first, wary, but as she slowly regained her strength, she began to eat small, hesitant portions. The cubs grew quickly, their tiny, helpless bodies becoming more robust and active with each passing day. Ethan made a careful effort to document the extraordinary experience, snapping a few photos of Willow and her cubs from a respectful, non-threatening distance. He reached out to his contacts once the storm finally subsided completely. But frustratingly, no one reported a missing or injured bobcat in the area. Wildlife experts cautiously advised him to release the family back into the wild when they were truly ready. But Ethan wasn't sure, not at all sure, he could bring himself to part with them just yet. Weeks blurred into months, and Ethan's quiet cabin was utterly transformed. The once solitary space now joyfully echoed with the playful, clumsy antics of the young bobcats. They tumbled over each other, exploring every single nook and cranny of the cabin with boundless energy. Willow became a steadfast, though still undeniably wild, companion. She seemed to genuinely appreciate the safety and warmth of her temporary home, a sanctuary from the harsh elements. Ethan took immense care to ensure that the cubs didn't lose their vital, natural instincts. He built a secure outdoor enclosure where they could climb, practice hunting pounces on toys, and learn the essential skills they would desperately need to survive on their own in the wilderness. Yet, every evening, without fail, Willow and her cubs returned to the cabin, curling up contentedly by the fire as if it were their rightful, permanent place. As the seasons shifted and the last stubborn patches of snow finally melted away, revealing the vibrant green of spring, Ethan knew the time was fast approaching when Willow and her cubs would need to return, truly return, to the vast wilderness that was their home. He dreaded the thought with a heavy heart, but he deeply understood it was the best, the only thing for them. On a crisp, clear spring morning, with a lump in his throat, he opened the enclosure, giving them the absolute freedom to leave whenever they were ready. Willow was the first to step out, her movements deliberate and achingly graceful. She turned back to look at Ethan, her intense amber eyes holding his gaze for a moment that felt like an eternity, longer than expected, filled with an unspoken connection. Then, with a final, elegant flick of her tail, she led her cubs, her precious offspring, into the dense, welcoming forest. Ethan watched until they completely disappeared among the towering trees, a bittersweet smile playing on his lips. Though his cabin felt profoundly empty and silent without their presence, the memory of their extraordinary time together would forever, eternally, warm his heart. The wilderness, in its unpredictable wisdom, had given him an unexpected, invaluable gift, one that served as a powerful reminder of the delicate, vital balance between man and nature. A bond forged on a brutally cold winter night and cherished forever. Lesson learned. Sometimes, the most profound connections are found in the most unexpected places, and extending kindness, even to the wild, can lead to unforeseen beauty and a deeper understanding of our place in the world. Have you ever encountered a wild animal in need of help? Or shared a moment with nature that changed your perspective forever? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did this story resonate with you? Let us know. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.